Hello, everyone. This is Kati Gostaspi, and welcome to the Kati G podcast. Specifically, this is the Who and What's a Healer sub-podcast series. And the mission of my podcast is for us to realize that we're great and we can be even greater. And most importantly, how are we going to bring this greatness to the world through our brand? So why this podcast? Well, two reasons. One, I care about humanity at a deep, deep level. And I want us all to see how great we really are so we can be happier. And because I struggle with my own feelings and thoughts, just like you do. I am not perfect. I'm just like everyone else with less than, feeling like less than. And some days are ugly, some days are good. And everything is surmountable as long as we remember that we have a powerful brand. So today, my friends, we are blessed to have the great and wonderful Sandra Murado. Sandra is an immigration lawyer from Miami, and Sandra and I met through Clio, which is a legal software vendor that is global. And so welcome to my podcast, Sandra. Happy to have you.
Oh, Kati, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be able to talk to you. So excited. Thank you.
My pleasure. So, Sandra, let's start by having you tell people a little bit about your story so we understand who you are.
Okay, well, I was born in Long Island. I am the only child of two Cuban parents who are Cuban refugees. They immigrated to the United States in the 60s. And on my first birthday, I moved to Miami with my grandmother and my maternal grandmother who helped raise me, and my parents followed suit in the 3-day trip down to Miami. My grandfather, my father's father, was also an immigrant. He immigrated from Spain to Cuba at the age of 16. So as I mentioned, I'm the only child, but don't consider myself to be a spoiled brat. I wasn't raised that way. I was always raised with older people, and blessed that my grandmother was the first person to teach me about God and faith, and it's something that I thank for every day. She's now passed 20 years ago, but she was my introduction to God and to faith, and I am blessed that I've had parents who have raised me to be a good human being, and they have done so by word and by example. And so I always dreamt of being a diplomat, and I guess that goes back to my natural ability to be a peacemaker and to always find common ground. And I think common ground is such an important message right now, especially through what the world is going through with all the strife and all of the conflict at every level. And I think what I want the world to know, if I had to be asked that now, is what is it that we all have in common? And I think what we all have in common is that we're all humans, and that's our common denominator. And when we remember that and treat one another as the creatures and the beings of God that we are, and acknowledge that what we see in others is a reflection of how we see ourselves, and to have kindness and compassion and look at the other person and say, there's a part of me in you and a part of you and me. And how can we make this journey better for all of us and make it a little easier, because you just don't know the path that person is on at that moment. So
Wow.
I think I deviated a little bit, but
no, you didn't deviate at all. Actually, you know, part of what I have you guys talk about, my guests in the first half of the conversation, is what do you want the world to know? What do you want to teach us? And your lesson was so beautifully said. It's almost like we're done. You know, not everything has to be long and drawn out. When people are short and succinct and to the point and eloquent like you just were, it's beautiful. And what a beautiful day for that message, by the way. I forgot to say at the beginning to all my listeners, today is Friday, November 13th, and it's World Kindness Day. So what a beautiful day to have Sandra on the podcast.
Well, I did not know that. I think every day should be Kindness Day. How about that?
I
We
love it.
make
And
it a
it's so true,
365
right?
holiday.
Right. I always used to say, why do we only have Thanksgiving one day a year? Why are we only grateful one day a year officially? Shouldn't we always be grateful, and shouldn't we always be kind? And look, folks, I know sometimes this sounds so cliche. I think in 2020, with the world of COVID, people are less apt to roll their eyes and think I'm woo woo and hugging trees. But it's so true. There are certain common denominators with us as human beings, as brands, if you will. And kindness and gratitude is it. And that's why they sound cliche, because they're often said, as Marianne Williamson said, and they're often said because they're true. So, Sandra, your point is well taken. And on World Kindness Day, especially, I hope the audience really takes this, and they won't be hearing this on World Kindness Day, but that's great, because whatever day you're listening to this is World Kindness Day for you, as Sandra said, because every day is. So, Sandra, I chose to have you on the Who and What's a Healer sub podcast series rather than Women Lawyers Making a Difference, although you could easily fit into that podcast sub series as well, because you are a woman lawyer and you are making a difference. But I really appreciate you looking at what you do and your practice from a healing perspective. I started this podcast sub series because I want professionals to see that what they do can be part of their purpose in the world and have a deeper meaning and a deeper purpose than what we just do substantively, perfunctorily, administratively during the day. How do you see your practice of law as providing healing for your audience and for your clients?
That's a great question. And what's interesting is that I never particularly saw myself as a healer. And looking back at my life, which is not too long and not too short, somewhere in between, I've noticed my pattern about me, or what's always been consistent, has been that I've always been someone's first friend. I've always tried to be the first friend to the stranger. I've always tried to be the one who welcomes. And although I didn't go to Catholic school, I was raised Catholic, and I'm not an expert on the Bible, I do know that there is a beautiful verse that says in Matthew, in the Old Testament, I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know if it's because I'm an only child. And sometimes I just looked around and really didn't have someone to play with or talk to necessarily, although I did have a very happy childhood. But I always remember it being very easy for me to put myself in someone else's shoes, kind of like the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so for me, it's very natural to put myself in someone else's shoes. And I guess if I had to say what my role as a healer is that as an immigration attorney, I handle a whole diverse, matters of different clients and different economical backgrounds, different educational backgrounds. I'll have clients that have crossed the border by themselves and may not be able to read or write, and I have those that have come on a private plane. And we are all human, and at the end of the day, we all need to be welcomed at some point and some level, and we all as human beings want to be understood, and I see that as my role. So I see my role as an immigration lawyer as someone who welcomes the stranger. I help them adapt to their new life. I remind them as a friend, as a fellow human being, that life is about change and life is about adapting to new circumstances and how we choose to see that. And I remind them that the biggest power that we have is the power of choice. And the power of choice is always ours, and we can always change our choice. And it's like I tell my kids, when you don't like what you see, then change it. Be that change.
As Gandhi so
And
beautifully said, yes.
yes, and so my role is to introduce you to a new country, a new idiosyncrasy, a new way of doing things, navigating them through a very complex process and with different perspectives on who and why we have immigrants in this country. And that definition has changed over time and our perception. But for me, what's valuable is to say, welcome. And I always tend to say, your country's loss is our country's gain. And thank you for your courage in coming here.
Wow. And if that's not healing, my friends, the listeners, I don't know what is. So eloquently said, Sandra. You leave me speechless. And as many people know, I'm rarely speechless. That was so well said. And that was such a perfect example for all the people that are listening of how we, in any profession, Sandra's being a practice of law, are really responsible and can be tasked with living a purpose of being healing, not just doing the job, not just getting the visas, not just letting people immigrate legally, but really serving a greater purpose of welcoming them and healing them with our words and providing them that shelter, that safe place where they can launch from. So I want everyone listening to stop and think, what does this mean for you? Where in your world and what you do? And that can be anything. Please don't think this is just about professional services. It's not. Sandra so eloquently said once, and I wrote it down, she considers the practice of law to be an honorable profession. And that can carry to anything we do. Whether you're an 18-year-old who is a waitress right now, at any moment you are giving value, and it's your chance to then be a healer and take care of people. And that starts with yourself, by the way. And I think Sandra probably does a really good job of taking care of herself in order to be able to give that back to her clients. Right, Sandra?
I try. You have to be your best self, and when it comes from love and you're honest with yourself, then you're happier because you're living your true purpose. And if you have life, you have purpose. And it's our journey to find out every day how we can serve and be a contributing human in this
That's
world
right.
that needs so much healing.
That's right. And it starts with us taking care of ourselves, self care, self soothing. Great brands are stable brands because it all launches from your own brand. And so you can't give to anybody else. You can't provide that beautiful service that Sandra, as an immigration lawyer, provides if you're not stable in your own brand. So, Sandra, having said all that, what's next for you? Where do you want to take this practice to next?
Well, interesting. This has been quite the year and made, I guess, most of us um, look within. And I've always dreamed or thought about anyway. And when I say always, maybe the last few years, I love all things international, Kati, as you know. I love to travel. I speak several languages. I'm always intrigued by other people. And no matter where they're from, everybody has a story. And I have a great deal of affinity or resonance with Spain. And I guess it's no accident that I always liked coastlines and cliffs and the ocean as a child. And I thought that maybe I had some Irish descent, but then it turns out that where my grandfather was from in northwestern Spain is just like that. So I would love to, when the world permits, and that being COVID, and to take my practice where I would be able to spend at least 2 to 3 months out of the year abroad. And perhaps because the world can allow us to do that, um, also enjoy seeing the world through other eyes and perhaps through the eyes of what my grandfather may have lived had he had the opportunities that I have been blessed with. And so it's kind of like being full circle, going
Mm,
back to where he originally came. And that's how life is, right?
yes.
Sometimes we make the journey back to where it all started. And I want to feel that affinity with the Spanish people, which I've always felt.
That's so well said, and that's so eloquent and poignant because in order to resonate with our audiences in anything that we do, and that audience can be an audience of one if you're looking for a date or if you're growing your business or your practice from a brand perspective, your audience is a greater scope, your prospective client base or your patient base. You have to know who you are and where we came from and our roots, and those very special. And I call it a personal connection story that I have my clients write. Some people call it an origin story, all sorts of things. If it just goes back to knowing who we are. So I think what you're doing is fantastic, Sandra. It's necessary. And for the listeners, please stop and think about where your next step in the journey is. It's not always going forward. Going backwards sometimes to your origin is going forward. So, what's your next step in moving forward and to discover and unearth who you are in order to bring your greater self to whatever you'd like to be the proactive next step in your growth and evolution in business or personal? So, Sandra, you gave us so much great stuff to think about. I want to switch gears now to part two of my podcast interviews, where you, the guest, bring to the table an issue or challenge that you'd like coaching. And from my coaching you, the audience learns tremendously, and you hopefully will get good feedback and good coaching to go and implement in this amazing brand you already have. So, what
Oh, Lordy.
what's on the plate for you? What's one thing that we can coach you through now?
Well, one thing I guess that I've been thinking about, um, sometimes I feel a little sense of, it won't be yearning, but when you've got a little something that's tapping you on the shoulder and says, don't forget, you got something on your mind. You got something on your mind. What is it? And I'm letting it come to the surface. And I've always been very involved in whatever community I've lived in, and been involved in helping at all levels. And I even ran for office a few years back, just when I thought that so many things could have been done differently and needed to pivot. And I remember looking back, I say, did I really do that? And I did.
Good for
And
you.
and my daughter cried when I lost the election, but although I did quite well for someone who had never run before. And I remember saying to her, Sammy, if I just impacted one person, that's all that mattered. Now,
Mm,
when I say that, and where I would probably need coaching is, while I love what I do, it doesn't feel like work. To me, it's a vocation, and you want to have that. You want to be happy when you wake up and say, I'm looking forward to this day. What can I do today to make it the best? And I think sometimes that there are more things that I can do now that my daughter next year, God willing, will be off to college. And I have a son who's 14, but I would like to see and perhaps get some coaching on how I can use my skills and my, my talent, or everything that God has blessed me with. How can I put it to use at a greater level for more people, whether that be locally, whether that be at any level. My prayer every day to God in the morning is, how can I be of service? What can I do today? What can I do today? And I feel that I would like to pivot. I feel something calling me that I need to be doing more on that level, and I'm not quite sure what it is. So I'm
That's
trying to look for that je ne sais quoi. And
beautiful. Well said. So that's a really important question you ask. And I would hope everyone listening at some level has already started asking that question. The question is always more important than the answer. And the fact that you wake up looking for that answer is beautiful, because then you create that reality for yourself. Otherwise, we're stagnating, and great brands evolve and grow and change. And we all know that that change is uncomfortable, right? I mean, I can even hear it in your voice, Sandra. You're very excited about this, but not knowing what the next step is or what to do is a little disconcerting. So, sitting in that discomfort is the first thing I would coach you on, and allowing it to get more uncomfortable. Maybe it's not uncomfortable at all, really, the way you look at it now, because it's exciting, but sitting with it and listening for the answers. If you're asking every day, what answers are you getting? And the best way to do that, folks, is a journal, Sandra. Grab a journal, write that question down in the morning, and ask. What was my purpose? Asking the big questions are very, very seminal and important. And most people, I'm sure, would be rolling their eyes going, what are you talking about? My purpose is to get up, get the kids together for Zoom school, and get to work so I can put food on the table. I get it. I get that that's how it seems it is. However, even doing that part, if you ask what's a bigger part of my purpose, is more fun. So get a journal, write the question, and then start writing free flow. That's how I ask all of my clients to write their personal connection story. But there's certain je ne sais quoi in free flow. It just comes to you, and the answers come, and they'll come in bits and pieces. And it's so exciting. I need you to look at it as exciting, Sandra, putting the puzzle together. So write down what comes, and do this every morning. Make it a ritual. Then if you're taking time to ask the question, that you're also writing down whatever comes through. Don't judge what comes through. Whatever your hand scribbles is fair game. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Don't try to manipulate it. Not that you would, Sandra, but our egoic mind takes over. Don't do any of that. And then the second part of the self-work is to step back and really look at what others tell you you're good at. This is what we do in our programs. Really combining the wisdom and the inner intuition you're getting from asking that question with, what are those things that people tell you you're good at? What are your natural talents? I have a full assessment that I give clients called the Natural Talent Assessment, where we ferret out all these answers. And then combining what others tell you you're good at with what you naturally are inclined to do with that inner voice really allows you to be on your way down that path of finding that purpose. And guess what? Be prepared that it's not going to be any different than what you're already doing. You can stay practicing an immigration lawyer, and I would hope you do, because you help so many people, as we already heard. But it'll evolve, and the brand will evolve to unfold and bring out and elicit more of who you are, and then you'll start drawing in a different audience. And so maybe you'll run the practice and have a podcast. Maybe you'll run the practice and run for office again. Maybe you'll run the practice and become a community service activist at a whole different level. Maybe you'll decide that you've always loved improv, and you'll take the stage and be doing improv and acting. I don't know, but that's the beauty of it. It's not an or situation. It is truly conjunctive and can happen at the same time. And I hope it does, because that's the dynamic nature of people's brands.
I love it. I love it. I think there's an aha moment in point number 3.
Beautiful. That's what I'm always looking for at this part of the podcast where people get coached. So I'm glad you got your aha moment. Fantastic. And I hope for all the listeners, you guys got your aha moment. Sandra, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. You have been a gift that You truly have. I appreciate your wisdom. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your gentleness with all of us. And I appreciate the fact that you bring a version of a lawyer who is a healer and who does great substantive legal work, is credible and knowledgeable, yet is well versed on what's next in purpose and higher calling. So everyone take a page from Sandra's book, evolve it, make it your own, and know your brand is exactly where it's meant to be and you're exactly where you're supposed to go. Share this podcast with other people because it will change their lives as well. And that's what we're looking for, transformation and change in a good direction. And until next time, Kati G out.